Welcome to Happening Multicultural Festival 2023. My name is Bänoo and I'm the poetry curator. We recognize that we live and work on the traditional indigenous territories. Muse Arts, the organization that brings you the Happening Multicultural Festival, is located on the traditional territories of Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit. I am now in Edmonton, Alberta, which is located on the traditional territory of Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, and Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe nations. As newcomers, refugees, and immigrants, we honor all the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on the land since time immemorial. Happening Multicultural Festival is the first and only Toronto festival created by community artists, giving center stage to the talent and skills of immigrant, newcomer, and refugee artists. It embraces the cultural richness of our city and creates professional development opportunities for artists. It offers a platform for organizations to connect and to form meaningful collaborations. During our poetry nights, we celebrate poets who, among other things, identify as newcomers, refugees, or immigrants. Throughout the first 3 Thursdays in May, there will be an online poetry event featuring 3 poetry readings. Despite the fact that poetry inhabits many geographical locations and speaks in different languages and accents, literature continues to be the most exclusive of arts and the most resistant against outsiders. And immigrants' linguistic, cultural, and political accents mark them as alien and hence undesirable company or colleague among fellow writers and poets. Our first poet tonight is Trevor Hughes. Trevor's first live encounter with poetry was with the Mersey Poets, Patten, Roger McGough, and Adrian Henri in the late 60s in his native Liverpool. He has been hooked ever since. His own sequence of poems, Belongings, was published by Kingston Press in England in 2017. After a career as an English teacher, he spent several years living firstly in Normandy and then in Alsace, France, before moving to Edmonton in 2021.
Thank you, Bänoo, for inviting me to take part in the Happening Multicultural Festival 2023. I relocated to Edmonton in June 2021 after several years living in France. For me, this is an occasion to reflect on the changes I've been through and to present some snapshots of my experiences. Some things that have been uplifting and others less so. I grew up in Liverpool, England, and it's been a lifetime's journey for me leading to my arrival in Papasteo, Edmonton. I still feel very attached to the city of my birth, the warmth and sharp wit of its people, and the famous liver birds on the waterfront, greeting those who approach by sea. One thing I was dimly aware of in childhood was that Liverpool had a significant part to play in the slave trade in former times, though in a sanitised kind of way. It was a part of British colonial history after all. I was in effect unwittingly part of a culture that exploited others without really comprehending the impact on those people. During the late 1960s, I first heard the music of Canadian-American singer Buffy Sainte-Marie, who has her roots in Saskatchewan with the Cree Nation. She was forcibly removed by government policy from her parents in early childhood and adopted in America. I was moved by her powerful denunciation of the way in which Indigenous people had been disinherited and their culture disregarded, especially in the powerful protest song, Now That the Buffalo's Gone. It was quite an awakening for me and showed history in a different perspective, that of the dispossessed. And it felt very special to hear her perform this song in Edmonton a few years ago on one of our annual visits. I'd like to begin my reading by acknowledging my debt to all those Indigenous peoples who've been exploited and indeed continue to be so. Voices of the dispossessed. We have seen the traffic of the world cross the seas from foreign shores, goods, weapons, slaves in chains, felt the weight of history, the yoke upon our shoulders, witnessed the grab of land, tribute claimed by raiding tribes, predators from far and wide, empty promises, broken treaties, seen our hidden ores mined by colonial hands, ruled by nodding pumpjacks, latest dinosaurs, bare footprints crushed by caterpillar treads, pipe smoke by belching chimneys, bisons culled, forests burned, while priests build schools, take us for fools, suppress our tongues, deny our rituals, yet distant drums invoke our soul. Our shared inheritance demands respect. Our native gifts await acknowledgement. Going back to Liverpool, I'd just like to give you a short poem, a snapshot of a happy moment when I went to a pop concert with Françoise Hardy, internationally famous at the time, admired by Bob Dylan. On her last tour of Europe, I was fortunate not just to see her, but to actually bump into her after the concert. It was a definite stimulus for my interest in the French language, and one of many inducements to moving abroad eventually one day after leaving teaching. Françoise Hardy. Searching through old albums, I stumbled on a ticket long forgotten, name scrawled across. Remember the night you stole our hearts, performed non-stop in incandescent white. Your sensuous tones crooned sad laments of hidden loves that might have been. Later, as in a dream, we saw you floating down the steps, detached from your entourage. Je ne chantais pas très bien ce soir, you claimed. We disagreed in broken French. Spellbound, too high to sleep, took the late night ferry. Our shrieking voices rang across the Mersey. When I moved to France, I had little idea of what to expect on arriving in a small village in Normandy. It was an impulsive decision. There were no expectations. In fact, I became very attached to people and places in time. The next poem is a kind of nostalgia for what is left behind when one moves to another country. Leaving the dream. Au revoir to the farmer who offered us whiskey before pointing our way with his old-fashioned musket, to the courteous old lady who lives at Côté with video cameras to keep intruders at bay, to the squat garagiste whose gaze is impassive, never sends bills until they are massive. Incessant rain, mud-covered lanes, snowstorms and gales ripping off tiles, shops that are closed for a 2-hour lunch break, bars and cafes that shut down by 8. The cows, the cockerels, the burrowing taupe, Jean-Luc the gardener, a master of traps. The combative workers primed to strike, power cuts and breakdowns that sabotage life. The village brass band with their halting fanfare, who perform at each festival, n'importe quoi. Military parades with veteran soldiers, cryptic conversations with elderly farmers. To all the expats who meet up in bars with the telltale gestures of inveterate bores. Menacing cavalries by the roadside, disturbing your vision as you drive by. Au revoir to the glistening colts in the fields, covered in blossom that gleams in the breeze. The beach at Deauville with its chalets and deck chairs, its US film festival, directors and film stars. The roar of the racetrack when summer arrives, jockeys flash by in colours and stripes. Twilight trips to the boulangerie for warm baguette, croissant, tarte amandine. Calvados, cidre, creme fraiche, camembert, pâté, foie gras, moule marinière. The sibilant sounds that caress our ears from the locals who kiss us twice on both cheeks. Au revoir to the Colombage houses and buildings. I ask you, vraiment, who would miss all these things? Some years ago I made a visit to Toronto to see relatives prior to settling in Edmonton. It was just disorienting at first, the alien environment, all those tall buildings dwarfing me after rural life in France. The journey, the taxi journey, had a sense of being taken for a ride in more ways than one. 407. Straight from the get-go at Pearson, we should take the 407. Avoid the hound-bound traffic, all those desperate drivers in their crawling cars. Limo cabs like mine aren't built to dawdle in the city jungle. This is a land of cranes. See them on the skyline, nothing but cranes and diggers, building condos all day long for private developers. Anything for a fast buck. Last chance to take the 407. The toll road's coming up. It'll cost a few dollars extra, but we'll be there in no time. We acquiesce, luxuriate in the open road. Now he comes alive, switches lane to lane, tailgates with menace, swerves to find the right lane. At the last moment, bullies other cars to let him in. Reaching our destination, screeching to a halt, he whips our bags from out the trunk. Expect you're glad you took the 407. I'm going to sidestep now to another kind of exploitation wherever you live in the world. The internet is part of all our lives now, beneficial in so many ways, making us feel connected, informed, yet it does have a dark side. I'm thinking in particular of the case of Molly Russell, a teenager from Harrow, North London, who was targeted with distressing material, having shown an interest in suicide. We all need to be vigilant. Algorithm blues. Trawling through the internet, seeking news, sharing views. Another image intervenes, a special feed just for you. Shopping, lifestyle, personal crisis, the latest gun for would-be terrorist. Got no friends, you're not alone. Scores of partners will turn you on. Aches and pains, need to medicate, we'll find you powerful drugs to take. Dying of cancer, there's already cure. New treatments peddle hope against despair. Something true you can't abide, we've got fake news right on your side. Addicted to gambling, your life is fucked. We've got an offer to keep you hooked. Suicidal, lost all hope, we'll show you how to fix the rope. Rest assured, we'll meet your need if it matches up with corporate greed. In Edmonton, I get about on public transport. I'm impressed how considerate most passengers are to one another, especially when they see people needing help. Nevertheless, there is a sense of life in the raw at times, so a need to make allowances for each other, show our common humanity. In transit. It's frosty at the stop, wind bites. Latino curses as we wait. Wife ignores him, surly. Smart dude beats his chest, bounding off the bus. Inside, kid with gashes mutters audibly. Woman with flu mask stares ahead. Girl shrieks into her phone, oblivious. Kid waves his arms to music only he can hear. Tall man does acrobatic stretches across the aisle. Lonely guy tries his gambit. Like your scarf, eating out tonight? We cross the river, snow clutching at the window. Stop requested. Lurch to a halt. Guy with t-shirt on his head staggers into the dark towards a hostile voice. Who do you think you are? Parting shot. Thanks for the ride. Driver nods. We're in this together. The next poem I wrote on New Year's Day in Edmonton. It's actually set in a village in Normandy in France at a village event on Bastille Day, and looks both backwards to childhood and forwards to life in Canada. Will the new year be a damp squib or offer fresh hope? We all take part in such rituals. Sometimes the occasion is a delight. Fireworks. Trundling through sodden fields, we arrive together in ancient procession, rooted to the earth. Await the spectacular explosion, signature flourish in the night sky, our feeble imitation of the stars above, linking us to former times, memories clustered in a garden round a cheap box of tawdry fireworks, lighting the blue paper, hoping to witness the Catherine wheel emit its spluttering sparks. And yes, they have begun to whir into life. Rockets shoot skywards, criss-cross, cascade in kaleidoscopic colours, touch our hearts. A collective gasp, shrieks of a child's delight, pierce the sparkling night. I began with an acknowledgement, and I'd like to end with another one. This time to the special person who has accompanied me for the past 25 years of our journey. Through life's struggles, its ups and downs, its joys and sorrows. Above all, a reminder of the power of loving and being loved to help keep us afloat. Smitten. You hopped and skipped into my heart, second-guessing my every move, in a three-legged course of love, gasping with laughter as I changed feet. Breathless, you kept in step, sashayed along a busy street, slalomed through passers-by, outdazzled the feeble rays of lampposts, sparked a current into life, created the magic which still sustains along autumnal lanes. Thank you.
Our second poet tonight is Yilin Wang, a writer, poet, Chinese-English translator, and editor who lives on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations in Vancouver, Canada. Her writing and translations have appeared in Clark's World, Fantasy Magazine, Poetry Magazine, Guernica, the Malahat Review, the Toronto Star, Words Without Borders, CBC Books, and elsewhere. She is the editor and translator of The Lantern and Night Moth, an anthology of modern Chinese poetry forthcoming with Invisible Publishing in 2024. She has an MFA in creative writing from UBC and is a graduate of the Clarion West Writers Workshop.
Hello everyone, my name is Yilin, and I'm so excited today to be reading some poetry for the happening Multicultural Festival. Thank you so much for having me. Today I'll be reading 5 poems. The first 3 are in English, and then the other 2 are Chinese poems that are translated from Mandarin. So I'll be reading them both in Mandarin and in English. So I will begin with a poem today about Sichuanese, which is a dialect of Chinese that is my heritage language, and is from the southwest province of Sichuan in China. A Sichuan diaspora daughter's kitchen. You must teach yourself how to carry loan words. Tiny seeds gift wrap like hand-me-down heirlooms as you crisscross past borders. How do you cook a dish called hupi la jiao, tiger skin hot peppers, where you only have bell peppers? No planting guides exist for foreign veggies that haven't yet grown roots and sprouted overseas. No family recipes readied you for the meandering map of code switching from Sichuanhua to academic Mandarin to every shade of English accent. You grow spicy green syllables in clay pots on a west-facing balcony with never enough heat. Nourish them with cloudy water you collected after washing rice, a habit you picked up from Gong, who once lugged buckets uphill from the changing shorelines of the Yangtze. You name your potted creations after imaginary friends, spirits left behind when you took your first flight alone at age 11, a one-way ticket to Vancouver with no return date. New peppers grow to bursting, light sparks teasing your tongue without setting it on fire. You pair homegrown words with raw slang, ground pork from a local butcher, the twice-removed second cousin of meat sellers in narrow hutongs. Add 3 spoons of soy sauce idioms. Sprinkle a fistful of garlic and sugar. Marinate phrases with salty grammar and a pinch of allusions to break the syntax of rule inventors disguised as rule breakers. Throw in 3 times the laogama chili sauce you think you need, then add another spoonful, just in case. Wait for the flavors to seep in so you can dayachi, make an offering for the cracks between your teeth. You're always, always hungry. The next poem I'll be reading is called Absent and is dedicated to my grandma, who taught me a lot of the Mandarin that I know. Absent. I'm backpacking in Oxford when Mama emails to say Waipo has departed. In the end, you were the only one missing. The summer I was 6, I returned from America after 2 years away, unable to write in Mandarin, not even my name. Waipo demanded I copy characters until I remastered every stroke of every forgotten word. When I last visited, she was penning a memoir. tattered notebooks she promised to share on my next visit. Waipo was a survivor who taught girls survival poetry. The night after her death, I muffled my sobs with a polka dot blanket, suffocating tears so they won't startle the lone stranger sleeping on the other side of my hostel dorm. Next day, in Stratford-upon-Avon, past Shakespeare's resting place, I light a candle for Waipo in Holy Trinity Church. Although she wasn't a believer, flames can guide her when the dead return to visit the living. 7 days after her passing, her ghost never appears. Years later, I'm still digging shumasti boxes in her bedroom in search of the manuscript she had been writing. Pages missing, their location buried with ashes. Not a single fragment of her lost words. No chance for a goodbye I would never say. Next, I'll be reading a poem, Moving Again. That's about my many years of living in Vancouver and having to move multiple times through the past decade because of the housing crisis here. Moving again. Holiday greetings from the landlady. Drilling and banging on Christmas weekend. A loud move-in, forced break-in, Happy New Year's, we're selling the house. I will show you the way out. Why can't I move into cyberspace as easily as I buy furniture off the digital marketplace? Countless video and phone calls, a mound of paperwork for a key. My 8th move in a decade. To Richmond, the land of Coast Salish peoples. By the Musqueam campsite Siam, traces of bunkhouses of Chinese and indigenous laborers still remain. I'm a settler here, un-American, un-Canadian, no citizenship, where I've lived for 18 years. All the stolen lands must be returned. We mustn't forget how indigenous folks nursed Chinese railway workers left to bleed to death on the tracks. How a Chinatown family adopted Wang Guan, an indigenous boy who sang Cantonese opera. The healing of wounds, the weaving of relations. Yojakugwe, home is a place to return to. The Chinese almanac warns it's an unlucky day for arranging beds. I receive a mattress and box spring more than a meter tall, must climb over fear just to rest. Decades ago, my step-aunt fled the same building in her nightgown to escape a midnight fire. Every chair I buy keeps getting rerouted, delayed, misplaced en route, yet never arriving. I sit on precarious stacks, unable to open my packed belongings. All my lights are gifts, a fake Tiffany lamp from my late step-grandma, lamps gifted by my friends on Turtle Island and Korea. The poetry of my name sister on the other side of the world helps me dream again in Sichuanhua. Please stop rerouting, my brother calls to my new landlord. Update my address to here. And now I will be reading 2 of my translations. So in addition to being a poet, I'm a literary translator working with Mandarin. And I have a new poetry translation anthology coming out next year with Invisible Publishing. It's called The Lantern and the Night Moth. And the book has two poems, translations, that are called separately The Lantern and The Night Moth, and thus the name. So I'll be reading those two poems, first in Mandarin and then in English. 灯，费明。深夜读书，四手一本老子《道德经》之后，若抛却吉凶毁佞，相无一事。太疏远莫若簪花一笑了。有鱼之于水，猫不捕鱼。又记起去年夕夜里地渠上看见一只小耗子走路，夜饭的叫卖声又做了宇宙的言语。又想起一个年轻人的诗句：鱼乃水之花。灯光好像写了一首诗，他寂寞我不读它。我笑曰：我敬重你的光明。我的灯又教我听街上敲梆人。Lantern by Fei Ming. Reading late at night, I let go of my copy of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, as if tossing aside life's changing fortunes and lingering regrets to converse within the solitary room. So distant from and unlike Mahakasayapa's quiet, knowing smile as Buddha held up a lotus. There's the fish and the water it swims in, the cat that refuses to catch fish. Then I recall a small rat striding across a rug last New Year's Eve. The night peddler's hawking has also become the universe's language. Then I remember a line of poetry by a youth. The fish is the water in full bloom. The lantern light seems to have written a poem. They feel lonesome since I won't read them. I say with a grin, I revere your brightness. My lantern then replies, listen, the night watch is striking a strip of bamboo to mark time. The second poem in Mandarin. 夜蛾，绕着蜡烛的圆光，夜蛾做可怜的循环舞。这些种香国的笛仙不想起已死的虫，未死的叶，说这是小睡中的亲人，飞越关山，飞越云宿，来祭慰我们的不幸，或者是怀念我们的死者，被记忆所逼，离开了寂寂的夜台来。我却明白他们就是我自己，因为他们用彩色的大绒刺遮覆住我的影子，让它留在幽暗里。这只是为了一念，不是梦，就像那一天我化成风。Night Moth by Daiwang Su. Circling the halo of candlelight, night moths dance in wretched repetition. These reincarnated spirits from Buddha's kingdom can't recall the insects already dead, the leaves yet to die. Moths are said to be napping kinfolk, soaring across steep mountains, soaring across cloudy trees, to soothe us in our misfortunes, or else the dead ones who miss us, pulled by memories, returning from the hushed netherworld. But I perceive them as myself, for their vast, colorful silken wings had overtaken my shadow, abandoned it in grave darkness. All for one conviction, not a fantasy, but that day I transformed into a phoenix. Thank you very much.
Our third poet tonight is Luciana Erregue-Sacchi, who is an Argentinian Canadian art historian, poet, translator, editor, and award-winning publisher of Labyrinto Press from Amiskwachie Treaty 6. Her writing has been longlisted for the Susan Crean Award and has been published in Polyglot magazine, the Selkie, Humber Literary Review, and others. Her debut chapbook titled Of Mothers and Madonnas was recently published in April 2023 through Polyglot. Luciana is a Banff Center Literary Arts alumni and the Edmonton Arts Council 2019 Artist in Residence.
Hello, I am Luciana Erregue-Sacchi, and I'm going to be reading some of my poems. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this reading. Forgetting Euskadi. Welcome to Canada. Thank you. Anything to declare? No. Plague, one lone survivor. Famines and barren fields from Euskal Herria to Genoa. More invasions, my great aunt's kinky hair and my Arab nose. Conversos and marranos, shipped to conquer the Americas. Rosas militias, scarlet serfs wrestling the desert from the Indians. Forgetting Euskadi. A 10-year-old boy, house call, and his future wife, a young maid, mi abuela. A piano teacher, and a reluctant civil servant. My parents' marriage made in heaven. Utter terror, picana. Soldiers, my 3rd grade, an unfinished law degree. Whose laws? Baggage, dragged from the Pampas to Vancouver. Images, my own private cinema. My writing, my story, their future. The embroiderer from Harrods, Argentina. My grandmother, Juana Laburó. Here I am, and also the first word, delicate. Never saw her as delicate. Delicate. Only the filaments she teased from the wrought iron gates in Park Monceau, weaving the barbed wire hovering over the pampas, nightly lashings of celadon and gold, satin stitch, back stitch, cross stitch, split stitch, broke the ghostliest linen sent from Buenos Aires all the way to Branson, where she lived. Before I return the remaining thread to Paris, her final suture I spell. Long threads you must avoid, they tangle like lazy thoughts. Stitch 2 moments with words, then pull, heart. Of mothers and Madonnas. What if I told you this mother has no shroud? Like the emperor, no clothes. The Madonna's blue veil is only hers and hers alone. Like hers are all these mothers' sins. What if I told you this mother manufactured sainthood, courtesy of early years of hand-holding, alongside her own mother, blurred motherhood in training, walking the small town center, to the grocer, the boutique, the bank. What if I told you? Doubt never left her, so she left. She wants you to remember her ablations, abortions, the men. Oh, the men, and how this time she compares and contrasts all the Madonnas she ever prayed to. The one of the rocks being her favorite, the Madonna of the rags in Rotterdam. One last Madonna, or perhaps the first. She can only remember through her grandmother's smoke. Señora Santana, ¿por qué llora el niño? Hearing once again, por una manzana que se le ha perdido. Tú ven a mi casa, yo te daré dos. Una para el niño y otra para vos. Corset. Lend me your corset, and from the inside, I will paint Flora from Argentina. Blue jacarandas, cebos that sprout in me like aortas, forgotten tangos, all of my fears, made out of gesso, like a blank canvas, you decorated from the outside with hammer, sickle, a starry torso, your stillborn baby, and your blue aura. I want your corset to embed my trauma like the Tilmatli of Guadalupe, so I don't have to live my life here, gasp for air, disappear. The golden mean. I brought apricots, bread and cheese in a clear bag, the same fruit Hercules was ordered to pick for the 11th of his 12 labors. You thought it was a sophisticated spread and told me, back home, apricots are smaller but tastier, as you took a first bite of the acidic fruit whose nectar dripped all the way to the rim of my cup. I told you about the fragrant apricots my grandfather used to buy at the market. He would display the fruit on a bed of newspapers on our aqua formica kitchen table, the one with uneven legs. And as the fruit came tumbling down, he exclaimed, "Apricots ripened faster back then." I have no patience for nature, I told you. You're always so quiet, you told me. I found it easier to let you do the talking, while my apricot ripened, taking delight in the golden mean of silence, a precious offer of opaque waste, drawn to trick the most cunning translator, in the knowledge there is still a golden apricot, like the ones back home, inside my throat. Atlantic Sorrows, a poem in honor of poet from Argentina, Alfonsina Storni, on the 80th anniversary of her suicide by drowning. Atlantic Sorrows. I sink my feet on the wet sand. I swim with you, Alfonsina. We see off have sunken vessels below the sea, our summer ritual, Alfonsina. It is October in Canada. Storming outside, coffee in hand, I recall your bas-relief monument, grazing and sent postcards from La Perla Beach in happy city. I see you. I remember your poem, pain, your pain, when 80 years ago you unsent farewell letters, your voice refusing the air, like a proud man refusing his lover. I see you. I always saw you. Thank you.
This brings us to the end of tonight's event. Please remember that a recording of this event, along with other poetry nights and other events in the happening Multicultural Festival, will remain available on Facebook and YouTube channels of Muse Arts for future viewing. So please keep spreading the word and sharing these events with those who may be interested. Thanks to the festival director, Paula Gomez, festival coordinator, Paula Sofia Morales, Alex Oscuyano, Natalia Ruiz, and all the happening Multicultural Festival team who work tirelessly behind the scenes. Thanks to our featured poets for joining the lineup. Thanks to all who spread the word. And thank you, our audience, for joining us virtually. Have a great night or day, depending on where you are.